we're in the holiday season now, and let's rank some Christmas movies. So this is a pretty big list. I have my laptop here, and it's a lot of movies, so I'm going to be as brief as I possibly can. I'm going to give a score out of 10 out of each of them. While I'm mostly a horror guy, I did include some classics on here, and a few you may not even have heard of, or maybe you saw for like a split second, or one you put on and just ignored it. But here we go. Let's rank some Christmas movies. A couple TV shows in there. Christmas Story, classic. I mean, I still surprisingly have not gotten sick of this movie every year. I completely get it to those who cannot stand it, but it's a classic. I always have enjoyed this movie. 10 out of 10. Christmas Story Christmas, sequel to Christmas Story, the actual considered sequel to A Christmas Story. Came out a couple of years ago. Actually not as bad as I was expecting watching it. Normally I'm quick to hate on movies like this, but I liked it. I didn't mind it too much. I liked seeing all the original cast coming back and being much older. And yeah, it wasn't actually that bad of a movie, so 7 out of 10. Nightmare Before Christmas, classic. Gives us spooksters out there actually some love for the holiday of Christmas. And there's the classic debate, is it a Halloween or a Christmas movie? It's just both. Can we just all agree it's both? I don't think it's as good as everyone says it is. It's one that I put on, but I kind of ignore a good amount of it for the music in that movie. So for that reason, I think that's why it's so memorable. You know, I like the spookiness, so 8 out of 10. Gremlins is just practically the best Christmas movie ever made. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. A lot of people will say, oh, Die Hard's the best Christmas movie, and it is a Christmas movie. I'm like, well, when you keep shoving Die Hard down my throat, like everyone in my life tends to be like, oh my God, Die Hard is so great. Like, I'm not gonna watch Die Hard. Like, if you're just obsessed with freaking out over it. And it's like, there's plenty of Gremlins fans out there. They're not jumping down your throat about it. So, but Gremlins is the best Christmas. Nosferatu, this is a show that had a 2-season run in 2019 and 2020. I can at least answer for season 1. Season 1 is pretty solid, I think. I only am like 2 episodes into season 2, but it is a significant drop in quality. And this is based off the novel from Joe Hill. And I'm sure those who read the novel and loved the novel probably hated the show. I mean, I feel like that's just kind of a given when you read a really great book and then you see it adapted. But going off of season 1 by itself, it's pretty solid. So I'm going to say, Nosferatu season 1, 7 out of 10. Krampus, this is the one from 2015 with Adam Scott and Colette, not the low budget ones that, you know, you see at gas stations. It's really solid. I really enjoyed Michael Dougherty's vision for this. You know, he did Trick or Treat, so he's like, hey, let's do more holiday horror with Christmas, so let's do Krampus. And yeah, I mean, the humor is not like 100%, like it doesn't land on all the humor, but it is a fun horror comedy, and it definitely is in the spirit of something like a Gremlins. Definitely a bit scarier, but I enjoy Krampus. I watch it every year, so I mean, it's not perfect, but yeah, Krampus, 8 out of 10. Jingle All the Way. This is one I watched a lot as a kid on VHS. My favorite line is, I'm gonna deck your halls, bub. Yeah, it's a terrible movie, but I like Arnold Schwarzenegger a lot, so Jingle All the Way, 6 out of 10. The Holiday, this is surprisingly one I really like. Yeah, I'm not a huge Hans Zimmer fan of his scores, but he did a really good job on the score for this movie. I like his stuff that's not like overly epic or Interstellar type sounding scores. So, but yeah, The Holiday's fun. It's a good rom-com, solid drama. I don't know. I like it. It's not a bad one to watch if you're looking for romance. Yeah, 8 out of 10. Violent Night. Watched this last year and I had a blast with it. Basically John Wick, but with Santa Claus. It was a lot of fun. David Harbour played a great Santa Claus, and the action is a lot of fun. Very violent, very over the top, but it works. It's a definitely a fun time. So yeah, Violent Night's an 8 out of 10. Last Christmas, I like this movie. I don't think it's among an amazing movie, but I do like it. And it does have a solid twist in it. I will say, like, the first time I watched it, I did not think that there was going to be such a big twist to this movie, but I did like Last Christmas, and the whole thing behind, like, George Michael and, Wham's music all throughout the movie. I don't know. I enjoyed it. It's fun, and yeah, it's solid. It's not great, but it's pretty solid. 7 out of 10. Just Friends. This is another one I basically grew up with watching. It's fun and it's fine. It's not great, but I do like it. But it's like one of those movies, like, I'm not fond of watching movies where just the main character is just significantly tortured throughout the entire thing, and that's one of these movies. While it is funny, it's definitely one that I'm just like, I just don't like watching like one person have the worst day ever. I don't know. That's just a personal preference of mine in movies, so... But Just Friends is still enjoyable. It's a 6 out of 10. The Family Stone. I like this movie a good bit. This is one that goes in my family, and we watch it basically like every year. It's got a star-studded cast, but the script is kind of... There's just really awkward moments of the movie where I just feel like they didn't really have a sense of direction with like filming a scene. I don't know, there's like awkward moments, like moments that are supposed to be funny, but they aren't, and even the cast, it just feels like they just didn't know what to do. So I don't know, that's just my weird take on the movie, but overall it is an enjoyable movie. So Family Stone is 7 out of 10. Fall into Winter. Fun fact, my wife and I went and saw Terrifier 3, then came home and watched Fall into Winter, and makes for a very interesting double feature, I'll say that. But Fall into Winter is not good. I mean, I can be a sucker for cheesy movies, but this is one that definitely did not land whatsoever. The two leads had no chemistry whatsoever. Like, even on from a really bad but enjoyable perspective, it still wasn't that enjoyable despite how bad it was. That makes no sense, but yeah, it's a 4 out of 10. Happiest Season. I only watched this once, like a couple of years ago. I just didn't really care for this. I like to say this was the movie where Daniel Levy wanted a nice paycheck, but he didn't actually want to go to the location where this was filmed, so they just filmed a bunch of scenes of him like elsewhere. And Daniel Levy's in the movie. But this is one that's just one of those where it's like, oh, I have to win over my significant other's family type movie. And I don't know, I'm kind of over stuff like that. So 5 out of 10. A Very Scottish Christmas. Not good, obviously, if it's a Hallmark movie. It's pretty by the numbers. They just basically have the same blueprint for every movie. It's got that one girl that was in Mean Girls that's in like every Christmas movie now, but I do like the Scottish aesthetic in this movie and the way it looks and kind of the location. So I'm not a fan of the bagpipes, but I do like Scottish culture, so 5 out of 10. The Princess Switch. Remember watching this a number of years ago, and it was like fine, but then they made like 2 other sequels to it. And I remember watching like the first sequel, and I was just like, why does this even exist as a sequel? Like, I'm just so tuned out to this. So, but based on the Princess Switch, it was fine. It was 5 out of 10. Terrifier 3, from a personal preference, this is just not my cup of tea. For a big slasher fan and fan of like a lot of gore in movies, this still just wasn't my thing. If you're into practical effects, this is basically a clinic. Like, if you want to get into the movie business with practical effects, like, watch Terrifier 3. You'll probably learn a lot from it. But from a personal standpoint, like, it was just mind-numbing to me. I'm like, I don't want to watch a bunch of people get tortured, but Brett, you love the Saw movies. I know. I don't get myself either, but this just wasn't my thing. I just did not enjoy myself watching Terrifier 3. 3 out of 10. Dash and Lily, pretty good TV show. Those only 8 episodes, came out in 2020. And yeah, I enjoyed this one. It's a good romance, and it's based off of Dash and Lily's Book of Dares, I think it's called. But yeah, I like both the characters of Dash and Lily because they are very similar, but they also have like kind of almost not opposite personalities, but it's like Dash hates Christmas, Lily loves Christmas, and they kind of like compromise and kind of see the beauty in both of those things. And so pretty enjoyable series, I would say. 9 out of 10. I like Dash and Lily a lot. I pretty much watch it every year now. Black Christmas from the 70s. I love Black Christmas, the original Black Christmas. It's really good. Borderline like the OG slasher film. Yeah, it's also surprisingly a really funny movie. Like, I don't think it really tries that hard to be funny, but it just naturally is a hilarious movie. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. So if you want a good Christmas slasher, and you haven't seen the original Black Christmas, definitely check it out. I'm gonna go 8 out of 10. Yeah, I did a holiday horror episode on this as well. And I did a holiday horror episode, I think it was the same episode, but I did one on the 2006 Black Christmas remake. This is basically like the fast food version of the original Black Christmas, but there's nothing wrong with that to me. Like, if you just want a trashy, like mid-2000s remake, this is what it is, but I just somehow like it. I know it is bad, but I like it. I don't know. 7 out of 10. My ratings don't really matter. A Christmas Horror Story. Not one that really won me over, honestly. It is kind of like an anthology film. It's like 3 or 4 different stories in like 90 minutes. I mean, the last story is basically Santa Claus versus Krampus, which on paper sounds awesome, but it's really not as great as you expect. I would say the highlight of this movie is William Shatner plays a radio DJ. William Shatner's randomly in this. I don't understand. But the movie itself is meh. 5 out of 10. The Advent Calendar. This is a pretty solid, definitely under the radar type Christmas movie, but this has to do with an Advent calendar, and basically some things go pretty horribly wrong, but the main character is a paraplegic, and just some interesting things happen due to this Advent calendar, but it is very much in the spirit of the holiday. Yeah, I liked it. I like how the whole thing was paced and how it wrapped up. So this is definitely an underrated horror gem for the holidays. So 8 out of 10. Inside, the one from 2007. I think there was a movie called Inside that came out a few years ago with Willem Dafoe. I'm talking about the one from 2007. This is definitely on a lot of people's like most disturbing movies ever list, and for good reason. I mean, it has to do with a pregnant woman and someone breaking into her house on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. It's been a little while since I've seen it, but I did remember enjoying this, even for how disturbing and how extreme this movie is. It's still a solidly made movie. It's like, I didn't like Terrifier 3. Like, sorry, I just didn't like Terrifier 3, but I like Inside. So yeah, it doesn't make sense on like what I think works and what doesn't, but I like Inside from 2007. So good extreme horror film for the holidays. Yeah, 7 out of 10. It's a Wonderful Life. Great movie. This is definitely not a casual watch. This is one of those movies I recommend to people if they're really in the mood to watch something that's like big and like well worth your time, and you know it's worth the payoff. Like watching a fairly longer movie is It's a Wonderful Life is a great choice. And yeah, it's one that I'm not watching all the time, or I may not even watch it every year, but when I do, it's a great film. There's a reason why people talk about it to this day. Wonderful Life, 9 out of 10. Edward Scissorhands. I put this on this list. It's so funny how this movie is considered a Christmas movie. It's not. It's 100% not a Christmas movie, but it's because it takes place during the winter and you have the ice dance scene, and you know Edward is all about like, you know, using his scissor hands and like making ice sculptures, but it's like it's not during Christmas. None of this movie is during Christmas. At least out of like the 10 times I've seen this movie, it's not a Christmas movie, but everyone associates it with a Christmas movie, so I'm putting it on my list. But it's a great movie nonetheless. Like, it's just a good movie, so 9 out of 10. FX's A Christmas Carol. This was a 3 like part special that came out a number of years ago. FX doing their version of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, and there's 800,000 versions of adaptations for that. I'll just say with FX's, they do try to go much, much darker, and there's some moments of brilliance in this special, I will say, but there are a lot of moments where I'm like, why did you do that? Like, why did you go there? And it does it for a couple moments in this. I won't get into the nitty gritty of it, but it's almost like, yeah, that's a little bit much. So to those who love the original Charles Dickens novel, it's probably sacrilegious basically to you. If you watch this, you'll probably like just like want to take a chainsaw to your television basically. So to those purists of Charles Dickens, don't watch it. You just want something kind of interesting. Doesn't really, you know, hit the target. FX's A Christmas Carol is it. 5 out of 10. I Trapped the Devil. This is basically the plot of the Twilight Zone episode, The Howling Man, but in a full feature-length movie. And it's just okay. I think the setup and like maybe the first half hour to 45 minutes of this movie are much better than the second half of it. The build is much better than the payoff, and it kind of ends kind of anticlimactically, but I do love the concept of this type of story of, yeah, you literally think you trapped the devil incarnate in some cellar. And yeah, it's a fascinating concept. But the movie itself is just kind of meh. The Twilight Zone episode, The Howling Man, is much, much better than this movie. So I Trapped the Devil, 6 out of 10. Pottersville. You wouldn't think you'd see Michael Shannon in a movie like this. This movie is actually just, I have to be self-aware at some point. This movie's terrible, but I somehow like it. Michael Shannon plays a guy who works at a convenience store. He comes home to his wife and finds out that she's having an affair, and they're both furries, and so she leaves him. He gets drunk one night and he runs around town dressed as a Sasquatch, and then there's this huge legend around the small town that everyone saw a Sasquatch. That's the movie, but it takes place during Christmas. Yeah, it's a bonkers movie. Pottersville, 5 out of 10. Carol from 2015 with Rooney Mara and Cate Blanchett. My wife and I did like our favorite Christmas type movies like a couple of years ago. We talked how much we love this movie, and yeah, it hasn't changed. I really love this movie. Really well made, and yeah, just the whole atmosphere of the movie is just really Christmassy and really enjoyable. So Carol's just a great watch, and most people will see like the cover of the movie and not think that it's a Christmas movie, but it is. It's all during the holidays. So Carol's a 9 out of 10. Really good movie. The Man Who Invented Christmas. I talked about this movie before on the channel a number of times. I like it. It's another rendition of A Christmas Carol, but it's told in kind of a cool twist where Dan Stevens plays the author Charles Dickens, and it's basically him coming up with the concept of A Christmas Carol. And when he's like imagining all these ideas for writing his story, he's basically seeing the real life version of it. And so it's a pretty unique take on it. Not like a great movie, but when you're a creative person and you're like wondering about the creative process of like making things or coming up with ideas, it's fascinating. So 8 out of 10. Home Alone 1, 10 out of 10. I have no faults on it. It's perfect, basically. Home Alone 2, I don't know why, like even, I mean, I know Home Alone 2 is like, you know, way back when, but it's like every movie has to do what Home Alone 2 did, basically, where it's like you have to go bigger and more ridiculous. Just because it's a sequel, that doesn't mean you have to do that. I don't know why people think going bigger and more ridiculous means better movie. It rarely does mean that. Yeah, Home Alone 2 is just fine. I mean, the highlight for me is Tim Curry in it. So, but yeah, it's still fun. And you get to see like Marv get shocked by that one machine and see a skeleton, which is really funny. It's an 8 out of 10. Elves, this is a Finnish series, I believe, on Netflix. Quick watch, 6 episodes. It's basically like a Finnish more serious version of Gremlins. Gremlins fans like the silliness, but it's more like a straightforward take on something like that. I enjoyed it. 7 out of 10. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, perfect movie, 10 out of 10. Die Hard, I've seen Die Hard once. It's fine. Don't blow me up with your bazooka. It's just 7 out of 10. 8-Bit Christmas, it's fine. It's very noisy, very overstimulating at times, but I do like the old school Nintendo aspect to it, and some people will probably hate how it resolves, but I mean, I kind of get why they went that route, so it's okay. 6 out of 10. Better Watch Out. This is a great movie that just to go in blind with. I would say the main flaw to Better Watch Out is not the movie itself, it's just on any rewatchability. It kind of loses its luster on rewatchability, because this is one of those movies that like when you watch it the first time and don't know anything about it, like you have such a great experience with it. But when you rewatch it, you're like, it's fine. It's just, that's what it has going for it. But from a first experience standpoint, it's like an 8 out of 10. But yeah, it's not a very rewatchable movie. Christmas with the Cranks, terrible movie, but I still like it. Jamie Lee Curtis and Tim Allen deal with the nosiest people of all time. I like it though. 7 out of 10. Elf, the one Will Ferrell movie, I actually like. 7 out of 10. The Polar Express, it's okay. It's kind of like, this is the one time when Rotten Tomatoes, like its score was like perfect to describe Polar Express. It was like a 50-some%, where it's like, yeah, it's right in the middle. It's like, it's not good, but it's not like bad. It's just there. Visually, it's a good looking animated movie, but Santa Claus is shockingly creepy in this movie. I don't know. 6 out of 10. Christmas Evil. I like this movie. I tend to like trash, and Christmas Evil is kind of a trashy Christmas horror film about an evil Santa Claus. When you watch Christmas Evil, the original title was You Better Watch Out. I guess they just decided to change it to Christmas Evil, but I like this movie. It's terrible, but fun and mean-spirited just enough that it's not like overboard with it. Love Actually. Completely get why people love it. Completely get why people hate it. Love Actually has a lot of really depressing storylines in this movie, but in a way, what makes it work is it is pretty relatable, because not everyone has the best Christmas, you know, and it's not one of these fake sentimental movies. Like, some things just don't really work out, and there's some storylines like that in this movie. So I still like this movie a good bit, but people who loathe this movie, I completely understand your hatred. So 8 out of 10. How the Grinch Stole Christmas from the 60s. I enjoy it. It's a classic Christmas special. I really like it, and I love Boris Karloff for the narrator. Obviously, if you're a horror fan, you probably have some appreciation for Boris Karloff, and we have a Grinch outside, so I have to have some appreciation for the Grinch. So 7 out of 10. I'll just talk about Jim Carrey's The Grinch from like the year 2000. I remember seeing it as a kid and enjoying it, but I never really had any desire to go back and watch The Grinch with Jim Carrey, like, whatsoever. I don't know. It seems like a lot of people really like that movie, and my wife is like obsessed with the Faith Hill song "Where Are You Christmas," but I just never have any desire to watch the Jim Carrey Grinch. So it's just like 5 out of 10 to me. Yeah, we'll go with that. And finally, a Charlie Brown Christmas. This is one of those classic specials that I just love. I mean, then again, I'm a big fan of Peanuts, so I love the Charlie Brown Christmas special. It's the best of their 3 holiday specials. To me, the ranking is Charlie Brown Christmas, then It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, then a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. All the 3 major holiday specials are good, but Christmas is the best one. I like how it really speaks to the depressed person in me when Charlie Brown like walks up to the group and he's like, "I'm really depressed." I don't know. It works for me, so I really like it, but it's not perfect, but it speaks to me. 9 out of 10. That's gonna wrap up my ranking of Christmas movies. I think I ranked a good, like, maybe 30 of them. I don't know. I didn't keep count of how many I put on my list here, but I just looked at my laptop once. I'm like, that's a lot of movies. You know, I've definitely seen a lot more Christmas movies, but at least these are ones that are kind of like burned into my memory. So I'm sure I'll watch them a bit more terrible Christmas movies this season, but these are ones I at least wanted to cover. So if you enjoyed it, give me that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, because I'm all over the place with my ideas. But hopefully you enjoyed my commentary, and I will see you in a future video. Merry Christmas. Bye.